the meeting, but we just wanted to make sure we didn't have anyone else on the ballot before we get to that point later today. With all of that said, I'm going to invite our two lovely co-chairs of our Recognition Awards Committee, Charles Rice and Gabriela De La Cruz, to the front, and they're going to present our peer recognition award.
All right, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you all for joining us today for this very exciting special occasion. We want to thank everyone who participated in the 2024 UNC Employee Forum Peer Recognition Awards process. We recognize, especially now, that so many folks are carrying heavy loads and are tasked with more responsibilities. So for you to make time to acknowledge and celebrate your peers, that speaks volumes. For those of you who took the time to nominate your peers and the UNC Employee Forum delegates who dedicated time to review 158 nominations that we have received, you are all greatly appreciated. UNC staff are top tier and it shows. Give yourselves a round of applause, and without further ado, we will start with the awards. I'm sorry, give yourself a round of applause. I am extremely nervous. I hate public speaking, but I'm doing the best that I can. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. If any of the recipients are interested in knowing who nominated you, please reach out to Gabby and I, and we will let you know that. So we will briefly review the award nominations and bio. The first award that will be presented this morning is the Staff Member of the Year, Hall of Famer. This award consistently amplifies the university's mission of integrity, collaboration, respect, and high-level customer service, and has been with the university for at least 5 years. Our first recipient of the Hall of Famer award is Kyle North. Communication for the UNC Husman School of Journalism and Media, where he works with a small and talented team responsible for the school's internal and external communications to inform and engage its stakeholders. We wanted to highlight a comment from Kyle's nomination. Kyle is a master at what he does. He is selfless in giving his time to the school's endeavors and does everything with a gracious heart. Our second recipient of the Hall of Famer award is Philip Spangler. Philip began working at UNC in April 2012 as a facility coordinator at the School of Law for 10 years. In August of 2022, he was selected to become the facility manager for the School of Nursing. He and his team had to pack, move, and purge many years of collections to 2 locations at AOB, Research and Administration, and ITS Manning, the classroom, labs, and hospital simulation classes. We wanted to highlight a comment from Philip's nomination. Philip demonstrates grace under pressure and professionalism during encounters with the understanding that our community members have different needs and expectations. Thanks to Philip, we've been able to support our mission of advancing health for all during the extraordinary change in facilities.
The second award that will be presented today is the Staff Member of the Year Perfect Addition Award. And this individual consistently exemplifies the university's mission of integrity, collaboration, and high-level customer service, and has been with the university less than 2 years. Our first recipient of the Perfect Addition Award is Gabby Peterson. And Gabby is joining us virtually today. She's a research project manager with the Renaissance Computing Institute and is responsible for supporting the management and logistical coordination of research and team science projects. To highlight a comment from one of her nominators, Gabby has shown commitment to mastering her role, on the project from the beginning, displaying passion and determination to make a positive impact. Our second recipient of the Perfect Addition Award is Lydia Collado Reyes. She is also joining. Lydia is a career services coordinator at the School of Public Health and assists students in achieving their career goals through personalized counseling, organizing career education workshops, and coordinating career events and programs. She is also a UNC alum. Outside of work, Lydia loves finding new plants to add to her collection and spending time with her family and puppy, Flan. Of note, Lydia's nominator wrote that this academic year, she has conducted over 480 individual student career advising appointments with consistent positive feedback indicated in the student surveys.
The next award that will be presented today is the Professional Excellence Award. This award recognizes 4 deserving staff members for exceptional execution above and beyond assigned duties, supportive interactions within their department, supportive interactions between campus departments. Our first recipient of the Professional Excellence Award is Kelly Docker, and she's joining us virtually. Director of Federal Affairs for the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. As Director of Federal Affairs, she represents the university in advocacy before the federal government, regulatory agencies, and key policymakers. We wanted to highlight a comment from Kelly's nomination. Despite her important and very demanding role, Kelly never overlooks the importance of ensuring that the UNC Public Affairs team and the greater campus community is aware of important developments at the federal level. Our next recipient of the Professional Excellence Award is Ken Witt. Ken Witt is a technical support for the Time Information Management, better known as TIM, application for UNC. I got a question.
We try to do the best we can.
Thank you.
Wanted to highlight Ken's nomination. Ken provides great customer support day to day and resolves TIM issues and still finds the time to continue his volunteer work outside of UNC. Ken is a great employee, but a better person and someone who I am very fortunate to get to work.
Our next recipient of the Professional Excellence Award is Megan Finn Cannon.
Thanks, Victoria. Thank you, Victoria. Hold on. Thank you. Oh my God.
Megan works as the Associate Director of Resident Living in Carolina Housing, where they provide leadership to the residential education team, manages operational processes, runs professional staff hiring, and works in student care and crisis response. They just moved to Chapel Hill 2 years ago from Washington State and enjoys reading, gardening, and just being outdoors here in North Carolina. Megan's nominator stated that with everything Megan brings to their job, the most valuable part is their enthusiasm for positive and impactful change, their desire to work with and empower others, and their consistent encouragement through some of the hardest work we do. Our final recipient of the Professional Excellence Award is Tara Carr. Tara Carr is a research program manager at Abacus Evaluation Center for Healthy Equity Research in the Department of Social Medicine. Tara provides evaluation leadership for health initiatives like NIH-funded rapid acceleration of diagnostics, underserved populations, and HEAL initiatives. One nominator stated that Tara supports those she supervises by offering time, guidance, and support, supporting their professional development goals and success, and helps them problem solve. She advocates for not only those she directly supervises, but other colleagues of hers and graduate students across campus.
The next award that will be presented today is the Overton Leadership Award. This award honors the memory of Jackie Overton, a beloved forum chair whose contributions made the forum a permanent group on campus. The purpose of this award is to recognize and reward individuals who have provided outstanding leadership to their office, department, unit, and the university as a whole through involvement in staff issues, committee work, teamwork, and professional development of peers. Nominees should be individuals who demonstrate outstanding leadership qualities, inspire and involve others, and work to ensure that the impact of their efforts in the community campus is lasting. Nominees does not have to be a supervisor to be awarded. Our first recipient of the Overton Leadership Award is Yana Biblin. Yana serves as the director of the VCR Research Administrative Office Center that helps faculty and principal investigators focus on their research efforts by providing customized administrative and management support for research proposal, grants, awards, and contracts. We wanted to highlight a comment from Yana's nomination. Yana has empowered multiple other team members under RASC to also have campus-wide impact by including staff in initiatives to improve Infoport, Connect Carolina finance systems, human resource processes, and research administration. She has and will remain a leader, contributing to the UNC mission of serving North Carolina, the United States, and world through research. Our second recipient of the Overton Leadership Award is Sandra Sandy Barnhart. Sandy is a senior research administration manager in the UNC Institute for Global Health and Infectious Disease. She has been with UNC for 24 years and was the UNC NRP Education Chair from 2020 to 2024. She manages all grant and contract submissions in IGHID, as well as administrative aspects of award management. We wanted to highlight a comment from Sandy's nomination. Sandy's hard work and commitment are as evident in the extra work she does beyond her assigned duties. One would never imagine that she is engaging in these duties above and beyond her day job. She brings so much high quality leadership to the larger community.
The next award that we'll present is the Pinnacle Award. This prestigious award recognizes an individual who has demonstrated leadership, vision, and commitment to excellence. Nominees should be individuals who are on a path of continuous learning through professional development. They should also have proposed a new idea and moved the idea toward implementation and is constantly creating a supportive and inclusive environment. Our first recipient of the Pinnacle Award is, drum roll, Catherine O'Brien, who is joining us. GIS coordinator in the Facilities Technology Group for nearly 22 years. Catherine is committed to leveraging geospatial technology to enhance campus operations in support of UNC's mission. Her work transforms data into action and helps improve decision-making. Catherine's nominator states that she has a vision that never rests. She stays abreast of all the latest technologies and explores ways we can benefit from implementing them. Her vision not only pushes technology, but also collaboration. Our second recipient of the Pinnacle Award is Kim Capri. Not here today, is joining us virtually. As Director of the Office of Student Services in the Department of Health Sciences, Kim oversees the employees and office environment for the Office of Student Services. All student-related issues funnel through this office and most activities that involve students, including orientation, semester, welcome back events, and graduations are organized here. A nominator commented that Kim possesses a clear and forward-thinking vision, anticipating challenges and identifying opportunities to lead our student services team towards success. She's a great listener, a quick learner, dependable, and invested and extremely enjoyable to work with.
Next up, we have the Three-Legged Stool Award. The Three-Legged Stool Award, AKA the Community Service Award, is awarded to distinguished contributions by an individual who works to promote cooperation and collaboration among faculty, staff, and students. Nominees should be individuals who inspire creativity, promote harmony and partnerships within the university community, inspire teamwork, cooperation, and participation, demonstrate new approaches to current processes, encourage, mentor, and build bridges, form alliances to work collectively or demonstrate any other significant community building activities. The winner of the Three-Legged Stool Award is Dr. Lori Hayes. Lori has over 25 years of higher education experience being an advocate for students. In her current role as Director of Student Services at the School of Information and Library Science, SEALS, Lori builds relationships with faculty, staff, and alumni to create systems and programs to help students succeed in reaching their personal and professional goals. We wanted to highlight a comment from Lori's nomination. Lori is a connector. When introducing you to a new person, she'll take the time to explain the way she thinks you might work together. She is the bridge that connects people with their goals.
Oh, but it's not over yet. This year, we have 2 new awards that were previously awarded through the University Managers Association. So the first one is the Manager of the Year Award. This award is given to a manager who has distinguished accomplishments throughout the university in their career, both within and beyond their normal job duties. They have accomplished something specifically within the past 12 months that has been of major significance. And the winner of this award is Taylor King.
There we go. See, that's how you take a picture. But I love all y'all.
Taylor King is a research operations manager at Comparative Medicine. In her current role, she manages 20 to 23 individuals and is heavily involved in mentoring all of them in one way or another. Taylor's nominator stated that she has been able to keep a positive attitude through it all, has been known to work beside her people with a positive attitude, is always willing to tell a joke or two, and bring snacks for her people. She always has a yes attitude when it comes to her employees and her place of business.
When I can sit down. Okay. Last but definitely not least, the final award that will be presented today is the Outstanding Encouragement of Learning and Development, known as the OELD Award. This award is given annually to a supervisor or manager who actively facilitates the participation of staff members in learning activities. An eligible supervisor encourages employees to attend classes and programs that are relevant to the employee's professional development and the university wants to recognize supervisors who support a more engaged, productive workforce. Both SHRA and EHRA managers who have had at least 1 year of continuous university service are eligible for nomination. The recipient of this award is Brian Lackman.
Brian knows not to upset me. We go way back.
On behalf of the, just kidding.
Okay. Brian serves as the Associate Director of Leadership Development for the Department of Student Life and Leadership. Brian is responsible for leading and supporting the leadership development team and facilitating leadership development opportunities for the campus community that range from short-term programs and workshops to large-scale multi-year transformational programming opportunities. Brian also serves as an advisor to the graduate and professional student government. We wanted to highlight a comment from Brian's nomination. Brian Lackman demonstrates genuine concern for the coordinators within his team. Not only has he provided me with opportunities for professional growth, but he has consistently introduced innovative methods to enhance our learning and redefine our approach to leadership. I value his sensitivity to the department's requirements and his encouragement for us to leverage our individual strengths creatively.
Now for the rap. On behalf of the entire employee forum, Charlisa and I extend our gratitude to the other forum delegates listed here who who reviewed nomination. This is a labor of love, and we truly appreciate the time and effort you put in helping us acknowledge the wonderful sentiments that were shared with their colleagues. Many thanks to Matt Banks, who helped. We couldn't have done it without. Thank you again to all of those who participated in the peer recognition awards process and all of you who attended the ceremony today. This will conclude the ceremony awards for the UNC Employee Forum Peer Recognition Awards for 2024, but we have one more group of dedicated folks that we'd like to acknowledge. So we'll turn it over to our chair, Katie Musgrove. Have a great day and go Heels.
Congrats, everybody.
Take some of that food as y'all leave.
Away from the recognition theme that we've got going on, we have some awards to give out to employee forum delegates. So every year we give out 3 of our K. Hobius Winberg Outstanding Delegate Awards. So this is an award that is on by employee forum delegates for employee forum delegates for outstanding service on the employee forum. Previous winners can't win, so if you've already won one, this isn't your year. All outstanding, just want to say that. So I am so thrilled to be able to do this. Sorry, let me coordinate myself here. The first winner of our K. Hobius Winberg Outstanding Delegate Award is Rebecca Howell. Our next winner of the K. Hobius Winberg Hobius, sorry, Outstanding Delegate Award is Charlisa, right?
Get that.
Our third winner of this year's Hay Winter Careers Outstanding Delegate Award is Teresa Silsby. Folks, sorry for folks online who couldn't hear us all in the chat. We had three really great winners. We had Marlissa Rice, Teresa Silsby, and Rebecca Howell. So congratulations to the three of you. You're all All right, folks, with all of that said, we're gonna move on to the next portion of our agenda. Is Nate Knuffman online?
That's my guy.
Katie, I'm just having a hard time hearing. Did you just call for, am I up on the agenda? Okay,
So, if you want to share your screen, if not, I can share
Yeah,
it
you're
for
the
you.
hype person.
do you mind sharing it? I actually don't know if I have the slides handy here.
Pull it up. Give me 2 seconds to share my screen.
Great. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to provide an update on budget and finance. First, congratulations to all the award winners. I enjoyed getting to hear and see how well deserved that is across the board. So appreciate that. I've got 3 updates for you today. One, I want to clarify, do we have an approved budget? What is the budget that's approved? So that's the first question I'd like to kind of update on. The second, how are funds, what are our top priorities? How did we allocate resources within that budget? And then lastly, I kind of want to leave us with just a little visit how we're doing, and at least look at one metric or one scorecard on the financial performance of the university and why we go through this effort every year and what it means. So first, we've got the budget schedule in front of us, and you can see a reminder on this process. It's a lengthy process. We start back in the fall, and we've had a series of meetings and had some opportunities to really understand needs across the campus. We worked really hard to put together to line up those requests with our top priorities and really make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees for review and approval in March. At that meeting, the Board of Trustees, they asked for some follow-up on a couple of items and committed to having a special meeting to take up the budget for approval. We did that in May 13th. The Board of Trustees approved our budget with 2 amendments. One, they requested or shifted $2.3 million that was identified as part of our DEI report on diversity, equity, inclusion spending at the university that we do each year to send to the system office. They had an amendment that those dollars be allocated to public safety. That was one amendment. The second was they carved out athletics as part of the approval. After that point in time, we moved forward our budget submission to the system office. The Board of Governors reviewed that budget at May 22nd, May 23rd. So you see on that timeline there at the end of this process. And the system president since clarified that that the Board of Governors and the system approved our original proposed budget. So not the budget with the amendments from the trustees, but the original proposed budget. So that's what we have approved. And we expect that approval will be solidified in a forthcoming letter from the system office, kind of clarifying that situation. So that's what we have in terms of an approval. So we do have an approved budget, and we do as originally proposed to the trustees. If you move forward a slide, you can see just again, next slide there. If you can see again our process and how we got to that original proposed budget. Again, $125 million worth of requests. So a lot of meetings, pouring over a lot of that information and going through those discussions, and then ultimately a $4.2 billion budget approved. I will note, just in broader context, this is the third year we've been doing this. So we're starting to have some comparison and some trend line to be able to compare data to, and I think we're starting to I think a little bit more on the maturity curve. I think we're kind of advancing some in terms of how we manage the process. Next slide. So, there, thank you. So we talked about what was approved, and now really how did we allocate resources? These are the priorities. You can see in the rows the major priorities in areas where we are putting funding forward in this budget, and the columns are really the areas of focus or priorities that we mentioned in our October guidance, kind of just kick off the process. Hey, we really want to make sure we're looking at investments that address state priorities, support Carolina's excellence, safety and accessibility, and just solidify some of the investments we've already made. And so those first two jump off the screen and won't be a surprise in terms of School of Data Science and Society and Civic Life and Leadership. Needs from the state. They're either investments we've already made, whether we've gotten some of those schools up, and just really being able to solidify that curriculum and move those, make sure they have the resources to move forward. I mentioned the system office and legislative requests. We try to make sure that whatever we're funding at the institution, there's a complementary process at the state level, and that we're thinking about those things when we're putting these together. A big part of this budget that we're funding this year for the first time is a new allocation model for tuition and appropriation. And we're trying to better align how tuition and appropriation dollars match activity that generates that tuition and appropriation on the campus. So the student credit hours and where they're happening on campus. A lot of conversation with the deans and with the provost through the fall to get to that, to get to this point. So a ton of work into that. New academic programs, we often, though, before that new allocation model can kick in, there's often this year of where there isn't funding coming in. And so we recognize we need some bridge funding to be able to launch entrepreneurial activity. And so that's the impetus there. Graduate students, we've been supporting graduate students the last couple budgets, and this is a continuation very much of that, and making sure that we have dollars set aside to do that. On the research side, heard from a variety of units the challenge with having sufficient resources to be able to make investments in large scale equipment that kind of cuts across schools and units, and the need to have a pool to be able to tap into to do that. And so that's what that is aimed at. AI, we had a lot of conversation on that. That's one of the chancellor's work groups where they're working on this, and again, reserving some funds to be able to advance that priority. Security and after action review recommendations. We know that we will need some funding. The security cameras was part of our system office and legislative request, so $4 million of need there. And then we wanted to set aside some funds to be able to implement after action review recommendations. Cybersecurity improvements, accessibility. We've got some funds set aside as part of this budget to again continue to try to advance. You remember last year we set aside $5 million. This year we're even trying to enhance that some even slightly more to be able to continue to advance improvements we're making in accessibility across campus. We do have some efficiency and savings in this budget. Lease savings, IT self-funding some of those investments in cybersecurity, and then we're also we expect to have some reorganizations and restructuring where we will have a little bit of savings generated there. And lastly, probably the area that we had the most interest in from campus is just the pressures on startup being competitive and having the packages available in dollars to be competitive in that space. And so we reserve some. It's not going to be enough, but we did reserve some dollars to try to be responsive to that. Next slide. So I don't think that's the end of the process. Whenever I think about this and what we're doing on the campus, I think we've evolved a long way. For those of you that have been here for a few years, you know the absence of information we were working with just several years ago. And I think we've moved a long way in terms of transparency and being able to have more thoughtful conversation. But we still, I think there's things we can do to improve on just forecasting and analytics around this, how we govern fiscal decisions, and just, I think we're going to see this continued shift between not just showing a table of information and the transparency, but really getting into what are those resources generating in terms of performance? Like what are we getting for those dollars? And lastly, next slide, I want to leave you with, I don't think there's one individual scorecard, but we did just go through a conversation with Fitch last month where they look at all universities and check in and really assess the fiscal performance. And I think at this institution, I think we constantly, there's a lot of distraction. And I think when you really get down to the fundamentals, they remain incredibly strong here and compelling. Sorry, Katie, am I coming through okay, or is it okay? Just the fundamentals remain very, very strong. The student demand is incredible. State support, it's not only generous, but it's been consistent. We've been strong in fundraising. Our endowment is very healthy. Research, it continues to grow. We have an incredible research enterprise there. And then I do think it's worth noting, we put a lot of effort into this budget process. It really does pay off. And rating agencies even have noted this consistently in the last 2 years, just about how robust that is and why they have more confidence in us being able to sustain some of what's been a stronger fiscal performance more recently. And credit goes to everyone at this campus in terms of the investment there, because I think there is a ton of collective effort on that. And so I leave you with that. I'm happy to take any questions and expand on any of that, but thought it was worth sharing some of this good news too at the end.
Awesome. Questions for Nate? Liz?
Hi, and Nate, thank you so much for this presentation. I certainly appreciate how hard budget work is because I actually don't do it, but I need somebody marvelous to do it. So the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research may be able to provide more specific information about this, but we've been working on in the research managers discussions. There is a change in the grading and classification of research-specific personnel positions, and it's going to come with an increase in the expected salaries. However, departments like my own may not have the funding to match that. So long story short, some people in these research positions, and we hear a lot about how much money we have and how much research we have, but we don't always talk about the staffing. And I'm sure everybody in research would back me up saying the most robust research comes from well-grounded research personnel groups. If you're consistently temping in that, you don't have a lot of consistency. So we do need some good core research personnel. And this upgrade which is not just trying to give people raises, because I'm not sure that's even the goal. The goal is to try to truly represent what the positions are, and some of them even overlap. But we do know this does not automatically come with funding to try to meet these goals and changes. What can the university do to support departments that want to meet these goals?
Yeah, great question. I mean, it's a challenge that the entire institution is struggling with. Some we know our ranges are out of date, we update them, and then all of a sudden you see a gap, right? In terms of, and to your point, it doesn't come with the dollars that we need to move forward on those pieces. I think, a couple thoughts. if they're state funded positions, and these aren't, but if they are, making that case to the state and continue to be persuasive about the need and making sure that we are, sometimes the universities have been treated differently, and making sure we're at least keeping pace with the state on those pieces. With other fund sources at the institution, I think it really comes down to making sure we're as efficient in maximizing as many dollars as we can for those areas that are highest need. So I'm reading your chat, so or your clarification, and you're saying this is, can you expand on that, Liz?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt the meeting with visuals or anything, so I just want,
Oh, you muted, Liz.
in addition, I didn't want to bring up a lot of visuals and interrupt the meeting, but it's available. In addition to the pay band work that the state is working off and on to adjust and going back and forth, and we understand that's a slow process. The research units and under a lot of research leadership have been working on trying to re-represent the research personnel roles, responsibilities. It's not the same as a state job classification. And we are getting somewhere with this. And it is somewhat in line with what the state is doing if they ever choose to activate it. I believe that the sense was that it was our job descriptions were out of date. The way we navigate research systems at UNC has been upgraded so many times and so effectively. But our salaries are just, we don't even know how they would upgrade the pay bands with the information they have. And we wanted to be UNC specific. I don't want to speak on behalf of the people that have led this initiative, but I do know it's going to represent an elevation in what the expected compensation would be. And there's always this big quiet sound when departments say, well, how are we going to get the funding to achieve that? So since we do highlight the quantity and quality of research at UNC, I really do want to represent the people that actually do the research, and that this change is headed our way, and it is a budget concern. So thank you.
No, thanks for flagging that issue, and certainly as I mentioned, the research enterprise is one of our strongest aspects of the institution. The rating agencies pick up on that, and will clearly, I think, be talking more about how we support that, and if there are emerging personnel need there beyond what we always have, right? Even beyond that, I think we'll be talking more about that.
Another question. Matt?
Thanks, Katie. Katie, do you mind pulling back the slides back up and going to the slide with the list of priorities?
Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen. Give me 2 seconds.
Okay. So Nate, this sort of builds on Liz's point, but I was a little surprised to not see people, staff, investments in the people that staff these schools, that do the research, that mow the grass, that keep the lights on. World-class faculty, it takes dollars. And we have a AAA rated credit right now. I'm not sure how long we're going to do that if we don't get world-class talent in this organization to keep it running. So I understand that salaries are outside of our local control, as Becci likes to say. And for many staff and faculty, they're set by the state, as I understand it. We're certainly on the staff side. But I would at least like to see an acknowledgement here in terms of budget priorities that we're asking for it, that we're making the case. It's just a little surprising to not see humans on this list of priorities. I was just wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Sure, and I'd be happy to clarify that. So one, I'm encouraged the state did put together a 4% increase last year, and at least as a starting point this year, 3% is kind of built in for state employees, which is, for those of you that have been in the state and working here for a while, those are sizable increases and larger than we've seen. The second point on these priorities, when you look at these, by far the largest item of funding is the new tuition and appropriation allocation model. And in that is really dollars to keep pace with enrollment increase, but those are dollars that inevitably are going to go to people. They're going to increase faculty salaries, either help support either administrative or other components of the academic units, or either expand the number of faculty or provide increases for faculty. And again, that's the largest request by far on that list, and it is going to people. Support for new academic programs. Again, that is, as you launch a new program, the largest cost driver for anything we do at the institution is always people. In fact, if you look at our spend base, more than half of our dollars are in people. So that dollar item, again, which is one of the larger ones on that list, will inevitably go to our people, which is great. The graduate student support are certainly people that are going to be receiving those dollars. When we look and we think about even on the startup fund side, that's aimed at people, new folks coming in, yes, but also expanding and really making Carolina's excellence. And when you look at that column, even in our 4 priorities, when we say supporting Carolina's excellence, that is aimed internally at our workforce, which we are, which we understand and know is critical to us being successful. And so we did prioritize that as part of the process.
No, that's great. I would say it's not clear from this, just the graphic, but hearing that is encouraging to know that we are investing in that. Particularly, I'm thinking of Dean Weber's presentation at the most recent Board of Trustees meeting, looking at the top 5 enterprise risk management risks and thinking about how we can align not only the university's mission, but also these risks that Dean and Derek Kemp have identified. The number one risk is effectively managing talent and retention risks, particularly as we get more and more, Apple's moving to this area. So how many of these researchers are going to stay here versus go to Apple or these other big industries, these other big companies? What is our plan for the next 5 to 10 years, looking at our needs for people? So it's encouraging that that's sort of investing in our faculty and staff is not explicitly here, but it's encouraging to see that's sort of a foundational part of several of these other priorities.
I think Arlene had her hand first, then Rebecca.
I have a silly question on the last slide. And AF to something. What is AF?
I was trying to make sure I heard that. Was it on the last slide, AF? Is that the question about the reference to that?
Yes.
Okay. What that is available funds to debt. So it's a metric that rating agencies and others use to think about our ability to service our debt with our resource base at the institution. And so to the extent that our resources that we have available to do that are going down, or our debt's going up, that puts pressure on that metric. And so they were flagging that more. It's also relative to where we're rated. It's almost like in a way, we have our metric is a little higher and more aggressive than others because we're AAA. So our expected performance in that area compared to just a few peers, I think we're one of 7, makes it challenging.
Rebecca?
I don't want to get into semantics too much, but I think semantics are in some ways important in this discussion. And one of the things I heard from Matt was the discussion of staff and, the people who cut the grass, the people who were doing the work in the offices. And when I heard you respond to his question, what I heard was investing in people, graduate student support, faculty. I didn't hear you clearly addressing the need for the staff that are sitting in this room and the people we represent. And I think it is essential that we hear those words from you in all communications to the university, because we hear it and we don't hear ourselves represented in the communication as often as we feel is necessary to imply we're important and that we are going to stay.
I appreciate that comment. I mean, when we identify as one of our top 4 priorities supporting Carolina's excellence, it's not confined to graduate students or faculty. That also extends to staff and everyone who works at the institution. And some of these larger buckets that we're outlining here will inevitably flow to supporting staff. So I don't want anyone to walk away from this conversation believing that there's not a priority on our staff. We are incredibly appreciative of.
Hang on, Nate.
Did you get cut off?
Hang on, Nate. Where'd he go?
Uh-oh.
My screen says it's muted.
Oh, I think I just unmuted it. I think that I don't. Can you hear me?
We're good. We can hear you.
At any rate, I don't want anyone to walk away feeling like there isn't a priority for our staff or an appreciation for our staff, or even that it is not reflected in this process. We absolutely do believe that it is captured as part of that priority, and that funds will flow there accordingly.
Thank you. And I would just, my ask is that you make that explicit in your communications to us, because when we don't see us mentioned, we hear it between those lines. And so that's just my ask.
Totally agree.
Thank you.
I saw Annetta next and then, sorry, Megan, yes.
Good morning. Thank you for the update with the budget. Could you speak again about the approved budget versus the budget that the Board of Governors requested minor or significant changes to? I didn't quite understand that related to DEI funding.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And what before even getting into that, I did want to make one other point. It's just some context about what's happening in higher ed. You have several institutions that are having some pretty big fiscal challenges, and their budget looks a lot different than this. Institutions that are big R1s, even with some just got a little bit too reliant on one-time funding and got out of balance structurally and are having some big challenges. Even within our system, some of the enrollment challenges. Yes, we have to make decisions on allocation, but we are in a position where we're investing more and have dollars to add and expand. And I don't want us to lose sight of that we're in a relatively strong fiscal position, and that's a really good thing. It's a credit to all the work we collectively do, but and the great institution that we get to represent. But on the clarification on what budget was approved, I appreciate that question, because it's been quite a process for a couple weeks. So the Board of Trustees approved a budget on May 13th. But it had 2 amendments. One was to shift $2.3 million away from DEI to public safety, and one was to fence off our athletics budget. The clarification we got from the system office and the president is that was not approved. In other words, our budget without those changes is what has been approved and what we are planning to implement and move forward with as we move into next fiscal year. Is that helpful? Yes.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate everybody bringing up the issues with staff funding, but as a literal boots on the ground perspective, we've heard from upper management and just observation logic that a lot of the departments like HVAC, grounds, maybe not grounds, but recycling, and a lot of the facilities departments are getting contracted out. And that's why like there's not a lot of movement on budget and stuff like that for those particular departments. Is that the case?
Well, I'm not aware of a broad-based contracting out process within facilities or in other areas of the university. I do know that we have looked at expanding some on our contracting to just manage R&R projects, as some of our repair and renovation projects were, the system and the state began to really look closely at how quickly we were spending our R&R dollars. And it was a risk point on whether we would continue to attract very necessary R&R dollars. And some of the challenge for us was just having the staffing to move some of those dollars and projects forward. So we've piloted that in that area, but I'm not aware of a broad-based or any other big outsourcing efforts within facilities. Other parts of the university, it looks like there's some notes coming in. Again, I'm not aware of a broader conversation.
I know that our department specifically has requested to expand and like take over the projects at the university that are already contracted out. And we've had APA reviews that state that we need to expand, that 4 people is not enough to facilitate all of facilities, recycling and trash. And we've tried for like 6-7 years now to get this point across, and we've only been yelling at upper management, like it doesn't move any further. So I mean, all they keep saying is that they're gonna expand like contracting stuff out. So maybe that communication is lacking between upper management and you guys. I don't know, but.
Well, I'd be happy to follow up with our team to understand that more. It sounds like your request is to expand our current staffing versus what's outsourced. So it's not, are we outsourcing more, but should we be expanding our existing staff?
Yes.
Okay.
Point of clarification and information. Did you say 4 or 14? 4. 4.
4 people. 4 people.
Not even the whole.
Us technicians, 4 people are
Oh.
servicing
Fix it,
all the
Jesus.
buildings.
Women, you have 2 generator guys for the whole university now.
Yeah, and HVAC is severely lacking too, but I'm
Oh.
Don't call
Was it, may I kind of piggyback on that point? I'll try to be loud, I'm not entirely certain where the mic is. Something that concerns me was that kind of last point in the last slide about priorities, and it's something that I've seen a lot where people talk about efficiency, saving. And a lot of those efficiencies mean more people doing more work, getting paid less.
Yeah.
And I feel like the last point was a lovely example, like it is cheaper to outsource recycling to, I mean, my unit itself no longer has OWR do the recycling, do that through Shimar. But they still have to contact Shimar and still administer Shimar. Like, it seems at first like it's cheaper, but it's lower quality and it's increasing burnout. I guess my question is, efficiency is often missing massive quality portions of the equation. And it worries me that just looking at it purely from an efficiency and savings and not looking at it quality of either work or quality of life in that equation, I think that can result in us, saving a fair amount of money at the expense of quality and retention, which will result, in my opinion, in a slow but overall degradation. And I think that's something, I mean, my first job here was in the facility division. I started as a temporary. And I've watched those shops shrink across the last 5 years because, one, we can't pay them enough to keep up with private enterprise. That's happening in grounds, it's happening in housekeeping, it's happening in facilities, it's happening in a lot of our lower wage work because the opportunities simply aren't as appealing. And what happens is the work has to be done, so units have to find a way around it, and generally that means we outsource. And that is just resulting in fewer and fewer of those positions, and it's a compounding recursive problem. And I worry that sometimes from a budgetary standpoint, it looks like a good thing because it is cheaper, but it is not better.
I appreciate those comments. I just want to clarify that item on that priority list is driven really principally by 2 things I mentioned earlier: lease savings and IT's ability to leverage additional existing resources within their budget to self-fund those investments in cybersecurity. That's what's really comprising and largely representing what we're talking about when we say the efficiencies in that area. You're absolutely right to suggest that we have to be mindful, and we are, of the burden that we are placing on an increasingly few people in certain areas. It's not the same across the enterprise, but we really we rely on our process and our ability to either engagements like this through the forum, or even part of our budget process where we have those discussions and really start to try to understand what that burden looks like across the enterprise, and making sure that we're mindful of that when we think about resource allocation. But those are much more complicated questions that you put your finger on. And again, I just want to reiterate the priority in that budget piece is not aimed at that.
We have time for one last question, and Sarah, put your hand up, and then we have to move to the next thing. Sarah?
Thank you. One of those line items is an investment in security cameras. I'm curious about it. It was marked as part of the state requirement. So I'm curious about two things. One, what is precisely the state requirement for security cameras? And are we investing just as heavily in community access to affordable housing, food, healthcare, including mental health and parking, since we know that those contribute more to safety than security and surveillance?
I had a little bit of difficulty hearing that. I think I heard a question about the cameras or the security investment. Is that right? And I didn't hear the other part, the comparison to.
No, okay. I'm gonna try and paraphrase. You want to say again? Say again.
You got this.
So, question about the state, what is precisely the state requirement around the security cameras that you mentioned? And then the question is, are we spending an equivalent amount on things like affordable housing, parking? You mentioned food and all those things that contribute arguably more towards security than surveillance.
Yeah, so it's not, there's not a state requirement on the camera request or our effort to try to expand the use of cameras. We did do some benchmarking against peers and against even other schools in the system where we have we're a lot fewer, and we believe this will help with public safety. So that's really the impetus behind that request. And again, that's a request for the state, from the state legislature to fund in that area. In terms of, I think there was a question about affordable housing and parking and in our, is that included in our budget? Well, these are really, we are prioritizing those areas in the sense of affordable housing. We did a big study this past year. This forum will remember we reported out some of the results there. We haven't stopped work on looking at our parcels of land that UNC owns and how we might be able to expand the amount of affordable housing that's available, and really to help partner with the town to be able to address that. So those conversations are active, and we continue to have those discussions. On parking, we just did a 5-year planning effort where the Board of Trustees just adopted these changes. And the biggest change was really reducing the cost for our lowest paid employees. Those under 70,000 get a benefit, and we greatly simplified the pricing points and schedule as part of that process. So I do think there's been a focus on those areas, trying to improve both either access to affordable housing or even on the parking side.
Amazing. Thank you, Nate, for all of those updates. We appreciate you coming out quarterly to give us all of the finance and operations down low. And we'd love to have you back. I have a little pin here for you because I haven't given you one of these yet, and I've got one for Becci as well. So next time you see us in person, we'll get to it. So thanks, Nate.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna go a little bit out of order. What? Yeah. Okay, awesome. We're gonna go a little bit out of order. Becci has to leave a little early today, so we're gonna do the HR updates quickly first, and then we'll get to the officer election. Becci, come on forward.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's my friend. Here, my friend.
Thank you all. I admit that I have a much shorter list this month because we have arrived at what I think is a bit of a lull, or at least it feels a little bit more of a lull, having made it through commencement and a series of meetings thereafter. My counsel to all of you is if you don't already have some time scheduled and you have the capacity to take some time, generally, I realize not every calendar works the same, and some of you, this is the busiest time as opposed to the least busy. But it is, I am here to remind you, well, I know we had a lot of conversation in that meeting about what we get and what we don't get and how much money and all of those things. One of the few remaining perks of being a state employee is that we still get quite a significant amount of leave. And that leave is only valuable if you take it. And you are better employees for having a chance to step away. I know many of you feel that it can be difficult and that coming back sometimes feels like more torture than the benefits of being away. I'm cognizant of that. It's true for all of us. But I think there's a fair amount of research when we're talking about research driving decisions. There is a fair amount of research to suggest that people are better employees when they get a chance to step away from the office. So I hope as we come to the end of another academic year, you feel supported by your leadership and know that the campus supports you in taking the lead. And I hope you get a chance to enjoy some time with your families and those you care about most deeply. Even if it is I shouldn't say even if it is, some of us desire that the most, a staycation or just a step away. It could be an afternoon, walking out of the office a bit early, whatever it works best for you, please make sure you take that time. I've given a ton of updates on SHRA ranges and EHRA ranges, or now the EPS families and sort of where we are. I don't have a lot to update. We are expecting a chance to see some new numbers in the EPS space here in the next couple of weeks. That will be one more chance for us to review it, and then we'll be able to do a little bit more opportunity, or we'll have a little bit more of an opportunity to shop some of those numbers around and look at them in comparison to our existing ranges and how they work or don't work. As you'll recall, up until now, UNC Chapel Hill has had delegated authority to set our own ranges based on research that we go out and ask them to do a market assessment. We last did that in 2019 for EHRA, now EPS employees. That authority has been pulled back to the system in exchange for more latitude. It's a good thing, as much as I see some shaking heads. It is a good thing. They are now setting ranges for the entire system, but we in exchange get more latitude to take more actions locally, which should help speed things up along the way. What's most important, though, is that whatever those new ranges are, they don't actually set us back from where we were, and that Chapel Hill in particular can see ourselves in those ranges, because unlike previous setups, the ranges are set to accommodate all of the system campuses. So the good news is we have a seat at the table. The system office totally understands the needs of Chapel Hill and how we're different. Some of the conversation earlier was about our research space. Some of it is about just the size of an institution like ours, and the fact that we run based on the work of our staff. Certainly our faculty drive the instructional and research mission, but we need the full complement of our staff to make the organization run. So I feel confident that we'll have some good numbers in that space. Somebody asked about the budget stuff to follow that. Nate, I can assure you he's probably not on any longer, but I am in his ear more times than you can count about how we can continue to prepare units and the center continue to think about how financial interests of our employees fit into the longer range planning. So I understand the comments about the way that budget stuff was portrayed. I can assure you there have been several conversations about the way people roll up into that, and you can rest, I don't know, comfortably, but you can rest assured that I am continuing to sing that song in senior leadership meetings. We got a word that we expect to see the early version, a draft version of legislative increase guidance. Of course, we won't have the authority
to roll out a legislative increase until we're granted permission from both the legislature, the Office of State Budget Management, and the system office. But it's good news that they're already preparing the legislative guidance or legislative increase guidance. I haven't seen it yet. I don't know the details of it. We expect it's going to be standard 3%, but what we don't know is every year they make it a little bit different just to keep us on our toes. We're waiting that once we have it, communicate once we know what the timeline is going to be. And go from there. I have not heard any further updates that any of the statewide budget surplus will be redirected into state employee salaries. And in some ways, that's not entirely surprising, as many of you have likely heard. That is one-time money. It's not base money, so it's much harder to redirect into ongoing recurring expenses. But you should know that the system office continues to ask both for continues to advocate both in the short term, but more importantly, in the long term, long session, for ways that we can continue to support the employees who work within the system. Just a couple of other highlights. Some of you have participated in or hope to participate someday in ULEAD. Today, I moved from here to a meeting on our, my 11 o'clock is on our faculty hiring initiative. I've talked about that, how we're now working, having done EHRA and SHRA hiring improvements. We're now working on how to make faculty hiring a little bit faster and more efficient in a good way, not in a eliminate people, but rather get the right people here long before they accept an offer elsewhere. But we're working on that. And then after that, I go to ULEAD graduation. So we want to congratulate our graduates of one of our greatest professional development programs. And certainly, if that's something all of you are interested in doing, we'll see new nominations for that class come out later in the year. We also celebrated last week, 2 weeks ago. I have no idea. A few days back, we celebrated the 20-year banquet, celebrating those employees who have hit the 20-year milestone. Somewhat surprisingly to me, we had more than 200. Hope you're okay there. We had more than 230 new candidates join the 20-year society. The numbers keep growing every year, which is quite exciting. And we continue to plan more ways to connect with and engage those who hit milestones in their years of service, either to UNC Chapel Hill or to the state of North Carolina. And then there has been several bits of question and conversation. Some of it came up in the conversation with Nate around the DEI stuff. And I hate to say just DEI stuff, that makes it sound much like, but I can tell you that we certainly paid a lot of attention to that in the last several months as we've sort of tracked the trajectory of the resolution out of the Board of Governors. As you all know, that did pass at their most recent meeting. So now section 300.8.5, I believe it is changing. We are awaiting guidance on what the implementation requirements of that look like, but we have been in anticipation of that, working with all of our units, and the provost is driving this work, but working with all of our units to understand what it is we do that falls under what many will term the title of DEI, and then looking at, regardless of where you sit politically, the resolution was very clear that continued support for student success and employee well-being are tenets that are encouraged as part of this. I think any of us who work in public higher education can be sure that student support and employee well-being are things that we can get behind. So we've looked at or have been working through a process that identifies what is it that we do in what is currently titled DEI work that falls under student support, what things fall under employee engagement, and then what things sort of fall in the other category. And that will position us to take the guidance that we get to better understand how and in the ways in which we might make adjustments to accommodate the requirements. I think it's worth noting that Chapel Hill has actually done a lot of this work already. You'll recall that we had the compelled speech requirements that changed the way we accept and respond to diversity statements. I would argue in many ways that's made us better because we've been forced to ask better, more articulate questions as opposed to just saying, how do you feel about diversity in general? Anybody can answer that question. Tell me more specifically how you think you can, say, teach to a diverse student body, or if your job is something else, what is the specific duty you're responsible for? And then how will you take your skills to do so in a way that is in support of a diverse and varied community who brings to us diverse experiences and backgrounds. So in some ways, I know many people, and myself included, have initial concerns about the language and some of these things. But I also think there's tremendous opportunity for us to identify the things that are most important to us as part of our mission and find ways to build community and do the work that we think is important and talk about it in ways that really align with our mission, and ensure that we're bringing together a community that both honors, respects, and really has an expectation of bringing together people of diverse backgrounds and experiences. And I have my own concerns. I'll be candid about that, but I really do feel like the effort to identify student support and employee well-being is really going to position us well to identify how we move forward in the face of this most recent update. But having done the compelled speech piece, having looked at institutional neutrality, having done a whole bunch of work following the SFFA hearing at the Supreme Court level, there have been a lot of shifts in the way a lot of the work we do is done, and yet a lot of the work continues. And I expect we'll see a lot of that, of the same in this next round. I think those are the bulk of my updates. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions if you've got them. Yep.
As far as the recognition program, once upon a time, folks that had more than 25 and above, they would have an opportunity to have a little gathering. And then there was also a gift. I have 34.5 years myself for the state, 27 and a half at UNC. Wow. And I'm curious about that because for those that for those that have put in that time, I'm speaking for myself here, but I think I'm also speaking for others. Those opportunities, those gatherings and the ability to pick out something, acknowledging your service, were very welcome and appreciated. It made us feel appreciated. Yeah. And we've kind of gotten a little away from that. I know COVID, came into play there. I know budget probably has come into play somewhere in that, but can you speak to that as part of the efforts that you're talking about for acknowledgement?
Yeah, I think we're looking at bringing people together again, and we did something last year. We had a hard time getting a scheduled set up this year in a way that worked well, and there's a whole lot of background there that isn't important right now. But the gift piece is a much more challenging piece. This is sort of a non sequitur that will come back. We're looking at Employee Appreciation Day right now, and we just got our initial quote for food. The quote for food alone actually exceeds the last year total budget for Employee Appreciation Day collected. I have a pretty narrow budget, and so we have to make some decisions about, do we want to recognize the entire employee base? Do we do some other things? We also want to make sure that the recognition isn't, hey, we're going to bring you together and here's your 22-cent tchotchke that we were able to find in bulk for 4,000 people. So this is a balance. We can do the bring people together. The gifts are a little bit harder. We are continuing to look for ways to do that. And we have some ideas that we're sort of working through right now that might see some resolution there. One of the challenges also was the partner we had previously was sort of a throughput between us. That's not exact. They're not there in the same fashion any longer. So we're having to make some adjustments. Your point is well taken, though, and I appreciate very much knowing, I understand very much that recognition of our employees is a really important part of building community of any organization, but particularly an organization like ours, where people do such different work in support of a very broad mission. So how we do that. And in fact, I have to say it was very inspiring and perhaps helpful to me to have the chancellor attend a couple of these events and say, we need to do more of this. This is the sort of thing that brings people together. So I'm optimistic that we might be able to do more of that. I wouldn't go ahead and order your $70 poncho from the student stores just yet.
$310 sweatpants.
There we go.
I know I never actually spoke to you personally, and I don't really have a question more than, but it seems that HR is not very accessible to staff. And I've heard that from quite a few people. It's hard to navigate. There's no transparency. There's not very good communication between HR and upper management and then to staff. I know that you guys are probably hurting just as much as everybody else as far as staffing goes, but it's hard to get anybody to talk to, or to get the right person to talk to, or to get a straight answer out of anybody.
I'm really sorry to hear that. I'm happy to have a conversation offline. About specifics. I don't want you to feel like you don't that here, but I do think one of the challenges, and certainly I've had a lot of conversations about this with many of you, HR really needs to begin at your local level. Central HR is not in a position to manage most of the issues you all will face. And I realize that is remarkably difficult for many people to hear, because sometimes the answer they receive locally is not the answer they want to hear. Totally get that. There are other processes for that, but you have to start either with your supervisor or your supervisor's supervisor or the HR rep in the unit.
Yeah.
And those are the folks that can really help get you what you need. When they don't know, or they think there's a solution that maybe doesn't look as obvious, then they work with us. That doesn't mean we don't want to work with all of you. It just means that most of our work is on the transactional, moving large processes through that are initiated locally, then checked and managed through us, and then rolled back. It is a continuum. Many people like to see central HR, or even more so, the system office said no, or central HR said no, when in fact, most of the processes we do are linear. They start in the unit, they're handed off to the central office, they maybe go up to system, they maybe come back to the central office, and then they go back to the unit. That's a linear progression. It's not a power dynamic, but there are rules that in order to have local authority, we have to be able to continue to enforce some rules so that we don't have to take everything that you have an individual complaint and then it goes to the system office, right? We don't want that. Nobody wants that. That's not efficient. It's not in your best interest. The people closest to you have the best sense of the organization. You don't want me managing what's happening in your
To
local unit.
specify, I did start out with supervisors, and then I went up to the director, and then I went up to the whatever you would call manager, department manager. But it seemed to stop there, and I couldn't get any further than that. Like
hr.unc.edu. I work with the staff who review that every day and make sure things are directed, and we track how things are followed up. So you should be able to email hr.unc.edu, whatever it's on the website, whatever that general message is, and it should get directed to the right people. What may be happening is some conflict between the unit not wanting to elevate. I'm not sure. We can certainly look into that, but if there are specific people that you've contacted that you haven't heard back from, I certainly want to hear about that. But I can tell you we're watching a lot. I see a lot of the traffic that comes through in our general account, and I'm tracking that people are being responded to. So if this is a bigger thing, I certainly want to know more about it.
I'm sorry for keeping you on, but there are people that, like housekeeping, that don't have access grounds, that don't have access, or like they're not able to send emails and stuff, or be on Zoom calls or whatever. So they need someone representing them face to face on the ground.
Well, there are people in HR for grounds and facilities who can help coordinate all of this. And we have worked very closely with them to ensure that happens. We recognize there are a lot of people, it's not just facilities and grounds, who don't have access to computers and are on phones. We've made a lot of efforts to try to ensure that Surveys are in printed form, surveys are translated, communications are translated, that people are getting one-on-one meetings with HR reps and units. If that stuff's not working, we need to have a different conversation, but I don't want to suggest that the only way we're going to be able to communicate with people. Now, I will be clear, the HR office out at AOB is not an open access office. It is not a place you pop in and say, hey, I'm here, who can I meet with? Not surprisingly, most of the workforce in central HR is hybrid. And we went through the same exercise every one of your units did. Is this central work? Is this hybrid work? Is this remote work? Most of them can do their work remotely. And we track how long documents sit with each individual person. So we're measuring the productivity. And if productivity changes, we'll reevaluate whether they need to be in the office. I was over at AOB yesterday for a meeting. Most of the people I directly supervise were nowhere to be found. I know though what they're doing, but it is not an office where you pop in. Every suite is under lock and key, and that's intentional. We have a lot of confidential personnel data. How people manage that data is really, it's important that you keep your data protected. We don't want to be the source of a problem for your data. So telephone, email are the best. Your local reps can set up time. We have people who will meet with you there. It just has to be by appointment. So we just need to coordinate that. And if that's not something that your folks are aware of and we need to do a better job of communicating about, we're happy to make that happen.
And I can
Hey,
support.
Becky, it's Link. If I could just chime in on that too, just to add a little bit of clarification. There are specific units that we are staffed for walk-ins. So for example, our benefits and leave unit, we have a rotational schedule. I mean, we do the hybrid work in that group, but they do have a staggered schedule. We always have someone available to meet with someone who may walk in. Obviously, the scheduling of the appointment in advance is the better way to do that. We also have a representative from our employee management relations team on site every day in case of a walk-in. And then we do have on a rotational basis our I-9 staff to be available for walk-ins and scheduled appointments as well. So I just wanted to add a little bit of clarification and you're exactly right. The AOB is an open building that folks can come in and come to our reception suite and report in is what we instruct them to do. To let them know who they're here to see for an appointment. But all the rest of the suites, as Becky said, are locked for very good reasons, and they're not open to the public in that regard.
Thank you, Link. He's the AOB expert.
I was just gonna add to that, Becky, that I was there when HR went under lockdown and it had nothing to do with COVID or staffing at that time. It was the climate of the world at that time. And it will continue going forward, but agreed that all that stuff does need to be secured.
And I'm sorry, y'all, just to chime in, what I'm hearing or what I'm not hearing is, I hear that there is flexibility and hybrid for certain parts of HR, but for people in departments, like when I was in social work, we did have somebody there and then they all went completely remote. And so while they are on the ground in a department that has a physical space on campus, the HR people are not accessible unless you do call them or email them, and they're happy to come. But maybe in some departments that hasn't been set up, that there's, especially with housekeeping or grounds and some of the facility type things, maybe the communication needs to be, there needs to be someone available at all times, so that when something happens, that, there is coverage for that. So I'm not hearing that that's happening. So maybe the communication needs to be to those departmental HR folks that, hey, you need to have coverage. At least somebody needs to be here every day, and stagger it how you will, but maybe
That's a fair point. I don't actually know their staffing setup, so I'm happy to follow up on that.
So we're short on time today, but I'm wondering if you could stay for another maybe 3 or 4 minutes. I want to do another recognition. We've got someone special here with us, but I want to give you this first.
Oh, thank you.
And I know you worked with this person for many years, so I want you to be here.
Okay.
So for folks who aren't aware, we went into closed session the past couple of meetings to consider an honorary delegate resolution. And it is my immense pleasure to announce that that passed with flying colors, and we are here to announce that Terry Phoenix is receiving an honorary lifelong delegate.
Thank you so much. This is really special to me. I am kind of speechless. When Matt called me yesterday, and said, "Hey, can you attend the meeting?" I was like, "Sure." He's like, "Yeah, we've got something special for you." And, the lifelong delegate designation is just, I just cannot say enough how much I appreciate all the work the employee forum has done. And it means a lot to me to be recognized in this way. I know that we have worked a lot on different issues over the past, and the employee forum is so important. And again, I just want to say thank you so very much for this honor.
Thank you, Terry. And I want you to stay with us, and I want to read you the resolution that we wrote. So let me give me a second to share my screen. But this speaks the praises of you and all of the work that you did here at UNC before retiring. We miss you, by the way. Let me see if I can get this shared. All right. With that said, let me read Resolution 24-03 honoring Terry Phoenix. Resolution of the Employee Forum, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, June 5th, 2024. It's actually should be June 5th, 2024.
It's my to speak up.
Yeah. Whereas it is appropriate and fitting for the employee forum to recognize individuals who have distinguished themselves in service to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill community, so as to encourage similar achievement among the remainder of the community's members. And whereas when the accomplishments of an individual are combined with the courageous advocacy for an unserved but significant population at the university, to the effect of providing supports and assuring access across campus, true servant leadership deserves a fitting recognition. And whereas Terry Phoenix, former director of the LGBTQ Center at UNC Chapel Hill from 2007 through 2023, served the university in an exemplary fashion. And whereas T worked tirelessly within UNC Chapel Hill administration and human resources to successfully add gender identity and gender expression to the university's non-discrimination policy. And whereas T successfully petitioned the university registrar to secure students the right to put their affirmed name on their diploma through a clear and standardized graduation application process. And whereas T facilitated the addition of the option in Connect Carolina for students and employees to indicate their affirmed gender pronouns and name. And whereas T worked with facilities and other campus stakeholders to identify all single stall restrooms on campus, transition as many as possible to gender non-specific restrooms, and created a university maintained list of gender neutral restrooms. And whereas after years of discussion, T secured approval of gender non-specific housing in 2012 before the NC General Assembly implemented a new University of North Carolina system-wide policy that required discontinuation of this affirming housing option. And whereas in order to create a welcoming environment and clarity for supervisors, team members, and employees, T developed a guide supporting employees who plan to or were in the process of gender transition during employment. And whereas T works ceaselessly to integrate the LGBTQ Center into many campus-wide initiatives and programs, which raised its profile, making its services visible, available to a wider audience, and created bridges with the many identity centers within UNC, including NC to support a cross-identity LGBTQIA+ programming. And whereas T worked with the LGBTQ Center staff and others on campus to provide training to more than 20,000 people in 15 years, and whereas T helped develop a center that served as a dynamic and growing resource to all of the campus community, including programming, a resource library, drop-in hours, safe zone training, tailored departmental training, and more. And whereas T created programming to bring the LGBTQIA+ communities together and to celebrate important moments and accomplishments, including the Welcome Back celebration, NC Pride Week, Transgender Day of Remembrance, Lavender graduation, and much more. And whereas T helped establish an emergency fund for LGBTQAI+ students experiencing financial hardship, and whereas T's work has helped to raise visibility of LGBTQIA+ staff, faculty, and students, and created a more welcoming campus climate for the LGBTQIA+ community at the university. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Employee Forum hereby confers lifelong honorary delegate status upon Terry Phoenix, along with an open invitation to attend and participate in future deliberations of this body. Signed on behalf of the delegates at the Employee Forum, Katie Musgrove, Chair. Congratulations, Terry. Thanks for being with us. It's so good to see you.
We love you.
I miss y'all too.
All right, folks. Well, with that said, we're gonna move to a much less fun thing, which is elections. So with that said, I'm gonna turn the microphone over to Jacob and to Matt. And just a reminder, so we'll give it a couple seconds because the microphone in this room is really sensitive, so we'll let things die down before we start back up.
It's like one bathroom in this building.
No, there's four.
Let's do the speeches first, and then like as folks are voting, we'll give folks like 10-15 minutes to like. At the end.
Do we need a speech before we run?
We'll give 2 minutes for people to like speak. Yeah, the chair and the vice chair positions and the secretary position are uncontested. So do y'all want to hear from us?
No, we good.
Is that important?
We good. Listen, time is a tick.
That said, we're gonna do short speeches for the chair-elect position and the treasurer position, which are contested positions this time around. Jacob, do you want to do this, or Matt, do you want to do this part?
Yeah, I'll do the
Okay.
this a little bit. My apologies, my laptop is old and died. So we're doing this off my phone. Yeah. We scroll down so the phone actually the right spot. All right, thank you. Since we are meeting via Zoom and in person, today's election will be held digitally via Qualtrics and hybrid, because I don't think does everybody here have the ability to do a Qualtrics form? Is my
Their phone? Yeah.
Everybody here can get on Teams because we're gonna drop the link in Teams.
Oh,
To the employee forum,
Yeah.
delegates only lister. Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. Here's the problem.
You have to be here to vote, I know.
Okay.
We have a list of who's here, correct? Double check and make sure we don't count any votes that aren't here.
Because I know Matt was planning on dropping it in the chat. I was like, we just do one in person here, just write it down and I can count it.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
Two.
Create a QR code.
So,
There we go.
Yeah.
Matt, are you comfortable doing that? Sorry, I was. I'm new to you. Are you comfortable doing that? Not Matt, thanks.
Okay, sorry, Jacob, I couldn't hear. What's the plan?
Given the fact that we've got some folks in here, we want to make sure it's folks that are you able to generate a QR code as well as the link in the chat? That way we can share the QR code here and folks can vote here on the same Qualtrics survey that have a phone.
Let me figure that out.
Well,
Yeah, while you're doing that, we're gonna let Tiffany do her 10-minute speech about.
Okay.
Should be, but I do want to say that running unopposed is not, like, it's not lost on me, the honor that it is that you trust me to continue to serve. I really do enjoy serving to the employee forum, and I do enjoy being the secretary and being a service to you all. So I appreciate you all and wanted you to know that. I don't take it lightly, and I'm sure that the other unopposed officers feel the same.
we do. Thank you. But I'm in the back with a bad back.
I do have a QR code now. So if you want me to share my screen, I can just throw that up.
Yeah,
We'll wait until
we'll do
after.
that after our speeches, yeah.
Okay.
Since the chair position is currently running unopposed, we'll move to the two nominees for chair-elect. Elizabeth, you're online, yeah? I'm just going alphabetically. Yeah, that's alphabetical by first and last name. I'm not cheating. Cool. Just making sure I wasn't showing unintentional preference. Elizabeth, if you'll take a few moments to think about your position and your reaction to the nomination.
My reaction to the nomination is I was surprised to be nominated. I'm always up for new challenges in helping to represent staff interests here at UNC. I'm very thrilled that people were reading my mind during one of the sections of today's meeting about making sure staff are represented in all language that has to do with the operations and aspirations of the university. I have no idea how the chairs do their job, and I would love to support them and potentially learn the role itself. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. The other candidate for the chair-elect position is Rebecca Howell. Rebecca, you might come up closer because I think the mic's a little closer to the front.
Like you, I'm loud.
Yeah, it doesn't have a problem, but also if you stand there, then they can also see you.
Oh,
There
yes,
you go.
gotcha. I hadn't thought of that. Okay. So I am very excited to be running as chair-elect. There are only a couple of us crazy enough to want to follow in Katie's footsteps. I am in good company. And I might have been said person who brought up the other information about staff. With Nate, I am, as you probably know, and that was not a tactic to win the election. Speaking to Nate, I really did mean what I said. But my first meeting as an employee forum member was calling the chancellor out on something. And so, I think that this role provides me with a little of opportunity to learn how to do so a bit more diplomatically than perhaps is my nature. I'm excited that I have easy access to her brain and actually her office by both of us being at the law school, but I also fully respect that it's good sometimes to have representation from other parts of campus. So I don't want to keep this role and the chair role in the law school indefinitely. So I'm excited to have the opportunity, and I would be equally excited to have Elizabeth in this. Thank you.
Before we move on, Keith, would you like to say anything as a nominee for vice chair? Are you good?
I'm sorry.
Would you like to say anything as a nominee for vice chair? Are you good?
I love y'all. Listen, anybody who's interested, this is my last go round. Like, I got one more year left in me. That's all I got. So.
For those of you who cannot see, Keith is actively doing yoga in the back to get his back straight.
You're not as old as I am. Gives whole new meaning to speaking from the floor.
Yes, Keith has the floor, quite literally. So moving on, the next officer position would normally be secretary, but he's already spoken. So we will next move to the office of treasurer. We have 3 candidates for the position of treasurer. And going alphabetical by first name, because that's easier. And then a Streeter. Would you like to speak to the body about your nomination? Hey, I'm a W. I'm really like to go on alphabetical by first name. Jay's way.
Selecting last names.
See? Yeah, mixing it.
Good morning. I think it's still good morning, everyone. Annetta Streeter. I'm the Director of Patient Relations at the Adams School of Dentistry. So I'm a dental hygienist by profession, but have retired from clinical service some years ago. I now serve in an administrative and student support role. Sure. Do I need to repeat what I've said? Annetta Streeter, Director of Patient Relations for the Adams School of Dentistry. I have been in a variety of different roles in the past, serving with different organizations and different governing type agencies, and most all of them have come with some fiscal responsibility, whether it's reviewing financial reports, asking the tough questions, training on those things. I've also been responsible for managing the finance campaigns in the past, so I have those experiences. So I'm very much interested in supporting the forum in this way. I know that it would be an exciting responsibility for me to have, so I would appreciate everyone's support. Thank you so much.
Our next candidate for the position of treasurer for the employee forum is Bridget Ironside. I believe, Bridget, you're online, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Can you introduce yourself?
Right. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Well, good morning, everybody, first of all. I'd also like to say I was thrilled to be nominated. Currently, just a little bit of background about myself. I serve as an accountant and budget analyst for the Chancellor's office and the Office of University Counsel. For them, I do all of their financial reporting, their accounting, and provide all of their budgeting support. I've been doing that for about 7 years now. For the past couple of months, I've had the pleasure of working with Katie and Matt to step in for Tracy when she left us. And I've been serving as our treasurer for the past 2 months. Been working with them on the forum's budget and diligently tracking and vetting all of the forum's budgets, expenditures for all of the forum's initiatives. And I just really like to add that it's been an absolute pleasure working with Matt and Katie. Just being able to lend my experience and expertise. I think I've been a little bit of help, I hope. I look very much forward to serving in this role, hope to serve in this role in the next year. Thank you very much.
And our third candidate for the officer position of treasurer for the employee forum is Matthew Stedman. Matthew.
Hi, everyone. Hello. Okay, excited. I'm excited. It's almost lunchtime. I'm hungry. I'm ready to go. I'm Matthew Stedman. I'm a lab manager for the Biobehavioral Lab Corps, which is in the School of Nursing. I have been at UNC 7 years now, in higher ed 15, and it's always been in lab management with some combination of teaching or research in there as well. If you're not familiar with how cores work at UNC, we are revenue supported. So as a manager, I have to set all of those rates. I have to do all the quotes, the billing, all that kind of stuff. And since we are revenue supported, I start in the red and got to fill that up with revenue as the year goes along, and with the same goal of kind of reaching that same responsible zero level at the end of the year. I'm crazy enough to do this in my spare time. I have been the treasurer of the PTA at my children's school, so that means I will do this even if it involves doing taxes. So lots of great candidates. I would be happy to help. I know I would do a good job, but thank you all and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Okay, am I turning this over to Matt Steele now to talk about logistics?
Yeah, I think so, yes, looking at the script. So, okay. Thank you to all candidates for your willingness to serve in these leadership roles. Now that we've had an opportunity to hear from all candidates, we will describe how the election process will run. In a few moments, we will place a link in the chat or put a QR code on the screen that will take you to a Qualtrics ballot. Before we do that, it is essential to note a few things about the voting process. Number one, you must be an employee forum delegate to vote in the officer election. All incoming, outgoing, and continuing delegates are eligible to vote. Number two, North Carolina law states each person voting must sign their ballot. You must include your first and last name within this Qualtrics ballot. Who you voted for will not be shared. And I will say, Laura Pratt and I ran into this last year. We had to throw some ballots out because people didn't put their first and last names. Please be sure you put your first and last name in the fields that we provide on the ballot. Number three, each delegate may only vote once. If you submit more than one ballot, then all ballots received under your name will be removed from the total vote count. Number 4, the only required field within the Qualtrics ballot is your name. You can then choose to vote for any or all of the open officer positions. We will, since there are 3 candidates running for one of the officer positions, a candidate must win a majority vote to gain election. In cases where no candidate gains a majority, the 2 candidates with the most votes in the first round of balloting must participate in a runoff election. The candidate winning the majority of votes in the runoff election will gain office. In cases where votes are split among more than 2 candidates, a runoff election will occur with the candidate with the least votes eliminated. If there's only 1 nominee for each office, then a voice vote will be taken. We will place the link to the Qualtrics ballot in the chat in just a moment. You will have 5 minutes to complete and submit your ballot. At the end of 5 minutes, we will check in to see if anyone needs additional time to complete and submit their ballot. If you have trouble accessing the ballot during this time, please unmute yourself and let us know you need assistance. Once the ballot closes, we will take a few minutes to tally up the votes. We will then return to the meeting to announce the newly elected officers. Are there any questions about the process? All right, I'm getting a thumbs up. Hearing none, we will now place the Qualtrics ballot in the chat. So let me.
And it's 11:20, so you'll have until 11:25 to vote.
Oh, they're gonna do a QR code up front.
All right.
Yeah, I was saying, if you're not finding the link on your phone, we're also gonna throw a QR code up in just a second. You can just link with whatever mobile device you've got.
Katie, can I share my screen for the QR code? Okay. Make sure this works for folks.
Okay, perfect. I didn't have to vote.
Sorry.
All right, folks.
All right. The 5 minutes for voting begins now.
While folks are voting, we're gonna give folks like 5 minutes to bathroom break, get some food, all that kind of stuff, and then we'll come back and just do some housekeeping to close out the meeting. We might need 5 extra minutes of your time, like 11:35-ish, we'll probably adjourn, so if you could, I think that'd be great.
Hey, also, while the people here in the room, some of you have name tags, some do not. So I want to make sure that I mark that you're here. So I'll fit on this round. When I come back to the next.
Well, that's why I joined. Yeah.
But this one is
Well, that's.
I'll reach back up. You're like,
You're on the side. I mean, thanks for that. Five people to bring.
yeah, no, I actually, my recollection is like, I mean, it's not.
And because they're doing it
I don't
all.
even know who are. First of all, Steven Server, now. You were.
Oh, you are? Yeah.
Because the new. But like literally. It really did. Really did. When I answered questions.
So.
Nobody.
I agree.
Go.
This is like, number of times since I've been on the South building.
About two.
I'm like.
They have, right, and that's why. I started out. And that's what I said.
As I say, it's
So you are.
We can't move it.
Did not have a. Thank you.
We could not get the chair to.
Okay, true.
I mentioned to get those here and at home, we've got about 2 minutes left. Oh, okay. Transportation problems.
Changes. So I'm not about navigating.
Right. There will be change anything. The changes will come from the chancellor. Everybody's to get in front of it. In the chair. You have to get from the chancellor. And the chair. If you're saying we care about employee well-being, but we refuse to acknowledge the diversity of our employees, like, what are you talking about? That's not even, you. What another.
We're working over there. What was the contact and then also got this last one.
Right, the last minute.
But the previous one, by the board of governors was that the legislature let them. That, you know,
I was.
so that was, I wanted to say to him, they're going to do it anyway. They're going to.
And now it looks like we're working for you. As an example of what things they already know.
Right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and vote.
Anyone pick this phone real quick? For those of you online, has anyone online had issues or difficulty with this? Does anybody need an additional minute or two to? No. No one has asked for additional time at this point. We're gonna go ahead and close the ballot. Give us a few minutes. We'll tally these up.
All right, folks, while they're tallying, let me pull my agenda back up. Okay, Matt. Yep. So let's do the consent agenda really quickly. That includes both the May 8th and May 21st meeting minute, as well as our committee updates, since we don't have time to do committee updates in person today. If any of the committee chairs want to send updates to me via email, I'll get those out in my post-meeting email. Also, a reminder to current committee chairs to be doing your annual reports. Love our annual reports. They were great. So. Yeah, there you go. So just for folks online, they can hear like all the chatter. So like. Exactly.
Yes, somebody said yes to that.
So with that said, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda? And then I moved, James Tammy seconded. We're gonna do this by acclamation. Are there any opposed to approving the consent agenda? None. Seeing none, this approved by acclamation. So we're done with that. Other announcements. Staff advisory committee to the chancellor's staff is meeting with interim chancellor Roberts for the first time next week on June 12th. The agenda for that just got finalized. We'll send that out to staff delegates shortly. Vice Chancellor's representative meeting.
You profile there.
I love it. Started as frozen, but you know,
Does that mean you're on frozen?
I don't know.
Um,
Is it frozen over there? now?
Yeah, no, hang on, I'm trying to look at the tiny one.
Yeah, it's frozen on the screen. And online folks still hear us, so that's what I'm trying to get.
We hear you guys having way too good a time over there without us.
I think it's just your.
It's just mine.
That camera's still big.
Okay, so with all of that said, Vice Chancellor's representatives meeting is happening on July 11th. So we'll send out a call for questions on that one later this month. Employee Forum's annual retreat is in July. We've scheduled it for July 9th and 10th. The in-person portion will be in the morning on July 9th. And we'll have a remote via Zoom session on the 10th. It's to be determined if that's going to be in the morning or in the afternoon. So we'll try and get an agenda kind of settled for that and get that out to folks kind of later in June. And looking forward to that. That is where we'll kind of formulate our committees for next year, pick committee chairs, pick our division representatives for the year, and kind of plan our goals for the coming year on the forum. So it's a really good time to kind of do some team building, get to know each other, get to know the new delegates, and really just kind of get excited for what's to come next year. So always love the retreats. And then I think that was it on my list. Is there anybody that wants to bring something from the floor, Teresa?
I just want to mention, this went out by the poll for the Community Gardening Volunteer Day. That is on June 11th from 3 to 5. And that email was sent back to people with that date and time that had actually responded to the poll. If there's anyone else that's interested in volunteering, please let I or Allie or myself know so that we can add you to the list. But again, it's June 11th from 3 to 5 p.m. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Any other updates from the floor or from Zoom?